Alright. What's going on, guys? Another episode of Commander's Chat. This time around, we're talking about gacha slash building, or whatever you want to call it. This time around, I wrote out like a pretty long script, but not like a full script, just enough for me to like get my ideas down because there's a lot of number crunching available in it, or a lot of numbers in this that I need to like crunch down to give you guys like a better example. Anyways, what is the problem with gacha building? Well, disclaimer alert, for the most part, I think this gacha is fine. There's like, well, most of the time, everyone should be able to quote unquote win and get everything they need per event. So I don't think it's a terrible system. It's a pretty good one compared to most gacha games. Like, let's be real here, guys. Who wants to play a game where it's like less than 1% or less than 2%? That's right. Anyways, that's just my disclaimer. I'm personally okay with the gacha system, but there's some things that can be improved on my end that I think could be added into the game in the future or something. But let's get into it. Anyways, what's the problem? So, for the most part, if you spend about 300 or so cubes, you should be able to get everything in the gacha build. Like, I think 90% of the time, or something like that, most players in the game will get everything within 300 cubes. Now, there are very, very, very few outliers and very, very few incidents where you won't get all the ships in 300 cubes. I've seen very, very high numbers before, and yeah, it gets pretty bad. And if they make it to the end of the event, they don't get that ship, well, tough luck. You're gonna have to wait a year, and that's gonna suck a lot, especially if you're a collector. And most people play this game as a collector. Yeah, it's gonna suck. So that's one of the reasons for why that gacha system is kind of sort of bad. Or at least that's just one of the reasons. But again, I think it's personally okay, so whatever. The second one is it costs 2 resources for this gacha. If you notice in this game, and probably Girls Frontline are like the 2 big examples for like these kind of games. They don't use premium resources. They don't use gems or crystals or stuff like that. In Azure Lane, they use cubes and coins. Girls Frontline, they use manpower, ammo, or I'm still new by that game, but those 4 resources that are available in the game. Now, how is this bad? Is it limits you on other things that you can do with those resources. For example, I'm not a big like GFL player, so I'm not going to use that as an example. But for Azure Lane, right? We have cubes. Cubes have like 2 resources or 2 uses: gacha and priority research. So that's okay. That's not like a big thing right there. They don't share like a lot of things. Coins, however, coins are needed in so many things in this game. It's unreal. So if we're out there on event day, just mass building our entire like any sort of like progression, like if we want to limit break ships, we want to do X and this, it's gonna get screwed over a lot. And for example, a lot of the new events nowadays, they have borders. So it's like you have to limit break 6 or all the event ships to get this border. Now, you guys know limit breaking costs money. It costs coins. So if you're out there, you don't have all the ships yet, you're limit breaking as well. You're going to hit a threshold because most players make X amount of coins every single day. It's very limited on how much you make a day. So having 2 types of resources for Azure Lane specifically, I'm not a big fan of it. There can be some tweaks to it, but 2 resources, there can be something to work with. Something to work with it there. And the third problem is time-gated ships. Now, again, for most people, they play this game as a collector, which is fire. I mean, I'm a collector too, sort of, but I've been aiming towards like the min-max side, making all my ships as strong as possible. I'm more towards that end. But if you're a collector and you don't get that ship for that event, it's gonna suck a lot. You're gonna wait like a year. So if there isn't some kind of system that like alleviates players for spending a lot of cubes on a gacha and they don't get the ship, that's gonna be bad. Because if it's a spending player that doesn't get that ship, it can lead to like a lot of negativities in the game. So it can be good as well, but like here's an example, right? Let's say a person, it takes 400 cubes for a person, or let's say a person doesn't get X ship and they spend 400 cubes. So let's say they have 200 cubes and they bought 200 cubes as well. Okay, Yostar gets money, which is fair. But this is also bad because now that person won't be able to buy a skin. Now, this is good for Yostar because they make more money, but it's bad for that player because they don't get that ship. I mean, if that player gets that ship with some kind of system, I'll talk about solutions later. If they get that ship with some kind of like system added to the game, Yostar gets money. They won't get as much money from the player buying the cubes, but they get money and the player is happy. I think that's fair. But in terms of a business perspective, again, it's not as great. But I'll talk about more of that about later. Alright, now we can go to solutions. So solutions right here, this is the big topic right here because there can be a lot of counter arguments. There aren't any true solutions on this one in my opinion because you gotta think about it from a business perspective as well. I can give solutions that are fair to like free-to-play players and like most players in the game, but this won't benefit Yostar as a company or like Manju as a company. So I can only give so much solutions because you have to think about on their end as well. They still need to make money. Even though it's good for us, it has to work out for them as well. So finding that balance is pretty hard. That's just a disclaimer. Anyways, first solution is the pity system. Now, a lot of games nowadays have a pity system. I learned this from Grand Blue Fantasy where they have the spark system. You do 300 pulls and you get to pick whoever you want at the end of the pull on that banner. Easy peasy. And then nowadays I see a lot of games do it. I think like Brown Dust, Epic 7 now has a pity system too because their rates are absolutely awful. Awful. Now, a pity system isn't necessary for Azure Lane. You have a 7% SSR pool, and most of the time in those rates up, you have a 2% SSR and a 2% SSR. So 4 out of the 7 times you land on SSR, you're probably gonna get an event ship, or at least, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. So it's not terrible. The rates are pretty good compared to most games. Definitely very good. But again, there's outliers. So there's some examples out there where like people spend 600 cubes, 400, 500 cubes and never get the ship they want. That's bad. That's pretty bad. So I say there should be some kind of pity system in the game. It doesn't have to be like a very, very easy, friendly one like 200 cubes. I think 200 cubes should be the minimum, but I think that's pretty easy if I'm being honest. 200 cubes is like very, very like 80%, stuff like that. But at 300, I think 300 is fair. I think if someone spends 300 cubes for an event, they should get the ship they want. Because most of the time, if you're past the 300 cube mark, you're missing one ship. And that one ship is going to annoy you if you don't get it by the end of the event. So if they have a system like say, hey, if you spend 300 or 200, like 200, 300 cubes, you get this. You can pick whatever ship you want on this banner, and that's perfectly fine. I think that's fair. It doesn't have to be specifically that event ship. So like let's say you're done with the event, right? Let's take, I don't know, Winter's Crown. You got all the ships there, and you're like 280. You're at 280, right? Okay, let me just drop in 20 more cubes. Now I can pick whoever I want from the banner. Now you can get limit break fodder like SSR Boolins. I think they shouldn't allow like the open SSR pool like Enterprise stuff like that, but just event banner alone. But it's up to them. I think if they open up the SSR pool in general, so say you have all the event ships but you're missing Centaur, I'll pick Centaur. Something simple like that. That way, your entire pity system is not completely wasted. But again, that's just me. I think the system is perfectly fine for Gacha, but a pity system couldn't hurt them. Just make it like for like extreme outliers that don't get a specific ship that should be available. Now the second solution, this one right here, it's kind of tricky. It's kind of tricky. I say either knock out coins or reduce cost of coins. Now, again, I'm going to explain thoroughly why. Coins are heavily gated because it is used in almost every source of progression in this game. Cats, gear, limit breaking, awakening, priority research, everything needs coins. It sucks a lot. So, assuming you didn't plan ahead of time, you're looking at a maximum of probably 2 multis per day. Very, very maximum. Because you make about 20 to 25,000 a day for most players at least. They just do the oil commissions, the 1.2k oils and so forth, which is about 80 to 90%. I don't know. Someone can do the math out there, but it's like 80 to 90% chance of getting all the event ships in 280 attempts. Because in 280 attempts, most events are 2 weeks. You get about 2 multis a day. So you're looking at about 2 multis times 14 days, 280 attempts. And for the most part, that's like 80 to 90%. Someone could do the math like once again. So most players should get it. But again, there are extreme outliers, which isn't completely negate those kind of players from getting everything, because some players out there can hit like 400 and still missing that one series or one U47, stuff like that. So it gets pretty bad. So I say don't make the cost purely cubes, because coin progression, like, it's nice if they can knock out the coins, because then we get so much coins to use on everything else. But I say, like, it will speed up progression for most players. I don't know. It could be a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's fair for most players to like have more coins to spend around and not just use it strictly on gacha, because gacha is like a big usage for most players for coins, because an event can easily, and I mean easily, eat up like 300,000 coins, and that's a lot of money right there to use on like limit breaking, awakening, all that jazz. So I don't think it should be completely removed. I think there should be some kind of coin sink, just like keep players in check from like progressing too fast. If you're like a dev, you want to prevent players from hitting endgame as soon as possible. I know most players, like I know most devs, like, we gotta stall out our player base. We gotta make sure they're always farming, stuff like that. So I say don't take it out completely, but reducing it could help. I say for events or like SSRs in general, make it like 1,000. 1,000 per build is fair. Right now is 1.5k thousand. 33% coin reduction is completely fair. So now you're looking at like 2 to 3 multis a day for events, because you make about 25,000 a day. 1k per build, you're looking at about 25 builds a day. That's like 2 or 3 multis. That's pretty good for per day. Whereas right now it's 1.5k per build. You're probably doing like 1 or 2 multis a day. That's like 15 builds. And if you're gonna hit the extreme outlier, that's not enough. In some cases, most players do hit the extreme outliers. At least if you play for a year, you're probably going to hit that extreme outlier at least once in some kind of event. So that's kind of bad. And especially since events are being tossed out like non-stop, at least back then, it's slowed down now, it can get pretty bad. So you have to do something out there, because I think, like, in my personal opinion, if you're a smart player and you stock up on cubes, coins should be like the biggest thing that's gatekeeping you from just going all out on gacha. Like me personally, I have over 500 cubes easily, close to 600. If it wasn't for that U47 incident, I would have had like 700 by now. So cubes are no problem for me. Coins are the big issue for me. So if they can just like discount it a little bit, I'd say maybe during like an event. I think an event is fair. So like normal SSR builds 1.5k, during an event, just knock it down to 1k. I think that's completely fine. You can do more builds a day, get everyone happy, get all the ships they want, they buy the skins, you get money, easy peasy. There you go. And so I think that's fair for that part. And the third solution, this is something I made up when I was like at the gym today. You can add drills as an exchange for cubes. Now, why I think this should be a thing added to the game is because right now, drills, there's so much drills excess left over for most players. You have so many drills left over. Like for me, I have close to 1,000. And they're just sitting there gathering dust. I have no idea. My first drill's probably been there since like August 2018. I've never touched it or something like that. It's insane. So I think they should have like a system where you trade in like maybe 3 drills. You can add more if you want. 3 drills for 1 cube. I think that's fair, because if you do the math and look at the shop, the current exchange rate for 11 drills is 200 gems, and 11 cubes is 300 gems. 3 drills, according to Yostar, is the equivalent of 54.5 gems, and 1 cube is the equivalent of 27.3 gems. Now, if you look at this from ratios perspective, you're looking at about 2 drills, or like 2 gems for 1 gem, essentially. But it's like a trade-off. But I say this is good because it adds more value to drills right now. If you look at my other videos, I do my commission saving techniques so many times to avoid drills because they have no value. If you do this kind of exchange, it adds value to drills. So it's like, oh, I have no Q missions tonight. but I have these drills. If I can get some drills in, it's basically counting as cubes. So that's like a good trade-off right there. So it doesn't completely make it so drills are useless, and it adds value to drills in a fair exchange system. I think that's just how I see it though, because drills right now are pretty much useless. Everyone has them as the lowest priority resource in the game. If they do this exchange rate, it'll add some more balance to the game, or at least resources at least. Anyways, those are my conclusion. Again, disclaimer, I think the gacha is pretty much fair for most people. It's not horrible. It's definitely one of the best compared to like 99% of the games out there, so I'm not going to hate on it. I think it's completely fine. But again, there are outliers, and there are some things in the gacha system that I'm not a fan of, like the coins are being too expensive and stuff like that, so forth. So these are some things that can be improved on for extreme outliers so they don't get fully screwed over. Because again, even though those players are probably buying like a lot of cubes to try to gacha, try to get the ship, they're not going to be satisfied, because even if they buy those cubes, they buy those coins, they don't get the ship. This is turning into some kind of gacha game that are like just any other gacha games in general. Whereas Azure Lane is specifically made for waifu collections, or at least for most players, that is. So they miss out on skins, they miss out on all that jazz, probably wedding rings if they like that ship too. So you're missing out on money too as well. But you're probably making more from people buying cubes and coins anyways. But who knows? I'm not a game dev. I don't know all that jazz, etc., etc. And also my third solution, it adds more value to drills. I think this is a big one right here. Just make it so like it's kind of balanced out, because right now one build is like 1 to 2 cubes, and one drill to speed up the process. You don't even have to use drills. For most of the time, if it's like one build, you're just gonna leave it there. Why even quick finish that? Just leave it in there. And so you don't even need to use a drill. Whereas building, you have to use at least 1 or 2 cubes. So there's gonna be an imbalance eventually. Whereas right now for me, I'm sitting at like 600 cubes and like almost 1,000 drills. So stuff like that. Anyways, those are my idea, guys. A very long ramble on this one. Even though I thought I didn't have much to say, I kind of did have a lot to say. Anyways, let me know your thoughts, etc. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you guys have an amazing Saturday or Sunday, wherever you guys are. I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm hoping it's probably gonna be an Iron Man, or probably gonna be my main account. Who knows? I'll have to see. I've been enjoying my Iron Man a lot though. Anyways, I'm done. See you guys.